Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only Zebec network. Now, this will be a technical analysis video because we did talk about the news earlier today. Listen, if you want the news and you haven't seen it, then make sure to check out the last Zebec video just from a couple hours ago. But look, right, we can see Bitcoin is down, right? And I'm starting with Bitcoin first just because I wanted to point out Bitcoin. Oh, Bitcoin's down 4% in the last day. We can see it is bleeding. Just the other day, it was at 113,000, and now we are at $108,000. So the markets are bleeding, right? The markets are bleeding. Bitcoin is bleeding, generally speaking, which obviously will affect the price of Zebec. We can see, despite us going down, we actually went up in rank. Last time I talked about Zebec, I think we were 140, right? 139, 140, something like that. And despite the markets bleeding, we're actually once again having a fantastic ratio and really holding our own, right? Really holding our own. Without even pumping or anything, we managed to go up in ranking. So we rank 136 out of 9,404 active cryptos. And if you guys do pay attention to how many times, I say how many cryptos there are, we're usually around 9,500. And we can see, right? Cryptos come and go. Cryptos come and go, but Zebec stays. And that is why this project is going to be the future. Okay. We can see, right, in the last month, we are down roughly 9%. In the last 7 days, this is where we have seen the most amount of red, being down 16.67%. In the last day, we are down 5.4%. Okay. So, mainly bleeding in the last week or so. We could see that we're at 340 million market cap, really low volume at $15.5 million, which once again doesn't really concern me because we have seen higher market cap days. And, when things are going to start reversing, that's when we're going to see higher and higher volume. Despite price going down, holders are going up. And you might be confused. You might be thinking, why? Well, first of all, two things, right? There's a lot of great news that has been coming out surrounding Zebec for the longest time now, and people are seeing real value. People are seeing the value in Zebec, and they're jumping in on a ship, and they're seeing Zebec at a discount right now. They're not panicking. They're not exiting. They are just seeing Zebec at a discount, and they're jumping in for the opportunity, right? So very nice organic growth, which is what we love to see. When we go to the charts, we can see overall, right, the last 3 weeks, because these are the weekly candles, each candle represents 1 week, have been fairly bearish, which means, there's been selling pressure the last 3 weeks, right? 4 weeks ago, we had one of the best weekly candles, but we did say how the edges are the most important when it comes to breaking structure, right? We did not go above this zone, and we just said right away that, just be careful, right? Just be careful because we could very well be reversing, right? This weekly big pump does not necessarily mean anything. And of course, for the longest time, for many weeks at this point, probably upwards of 2 months, if not even more, I've been looking at this zone to be getting taken out, right? This zone that got created on the 1st and, got supported back on the 22nd of September. I've been waiting and saying, look, guys, I expect for this to get swept at the bare minimum. We can see, right, we had a very strong weekly candle. And then what happened next week? We swept all the way down here, right? All the way down here. Some of my buy limit orders got triggered. And yeah, things were looking great. I expected some downside movement, at least downwards of down to 0.0033. We did go a little bit further, but of course, that was just when the whole market decided to extremely get manipulated. And of course, I don't have a crystal ball, so I couldn't know that cryptos were going to be at such a massive discount, but I still got in at a fantastic snipe regardless. Then we can see, right, despite us, kind of ranging, going up and down, we were continuously making lower and lower highs, right? We have a high over here, we have a lower high here, and then we have a lower high here. So the buying pressure kept failing, right? We kept failing. Every time we started to go up, we're never able to go as high as the previous times. And then we can see, right, the last few days have been really bearish. Now, we talked about a potential reversal because we did have one of the strongest 4-hour candles in recent times. But, by the time the daily candle showed, it was very, very weak. And I knew, well, at that point, for sure, we are going to be going lower, which is what I've been saying in the last few videos of the Zebec technical analysis, right? Also, when we go and add one of the indicators that I also did customize, right? When we look at the 4-hour, this is what this means. When the green is above the orange, that means we are still in a downtrend. When the orange is above the green, that means we have more buying pressure. We are in a uptrend. Now, of course, sometimes it may flip too quick and be a little inaccurate, which is why, we take this still with a grain of salt. This probably has like 80 to 90% accuracy. Plus, you have to look at the higher time frame, right? When I go look at the daily, right, boom, it's actually very, very nice. Very, very nice. So we can see, right, when Zebec started to sell off in late August, the orange line was below the green line for months, right? For pretty much a couple of weeks. And then we can see, right, when the orange line went above the green line, that's when momentum really started to kick in. So, you do have to look at context. You do have to look at multiple time frames. And we can see even now in the last couple of days, the green line has been above the orange. And that would also align with our, buying pressure here. It's been extremely weak. The momentum has been flipped. So, nothing has changed. This shouldn't be a surprise that Zebec is going lower, because we also did mention this in the last video, how this line was above the orange line. We did also say how overall it's okay if we still go down. It is still very, very okay if we still go down lower, because the green line, this is the weekly chart, right? The green line is below the orange by a large margin. Okay, which means on the higher time frame, we still haven't lost momentum, which is very, very key and very, very important. Okay, this is what matters the most, is this weekly time frame, these weekly lines over here, right? The green below the orange on the weekly is all that really matters. That just means, like I said, we are able to go lower and lower a little bit without officially flipping bearish. And you know what? I don't think we necessarily will. Like, I do think we will go lower, but I don't think we will flip to the point where this green line is above the orange, where the indicator will say, okay, we have officially lost very, very high momentum, right? So we can see overall right now in the last 8 hours, we are trying to go up a little bit, but I see no difference. I see no difference. We are still in a downtrend, clear as day, right? We are continuously making lower lows. We are continuously making lower and lower highs. So even if we go up to something like 0.0037 and we start reversing, all we're doing is not creating another lower high. Okay, nothing has changed. Nothing. So just be wary of that. Do not get too do not feel FOMO for missing out. If you see Zebec go up 4, 5, 6%, I don't think that really causes FOMO for most people, 4 or 5%, but for some it might. For some it might. So yeah, look, overall, right, for me, this doesn't really matter in the long term, right? Let's say we go look at the weekly candles, and let's just say we do something like this. Now, you might be thinking, why would you put us here? Well, this is where Zebec started, right? This is where Zebec started, and this is a very, very huge zone on the weekly. So this has a lot of value. Let's just say right now we would start to go back to this green line. Do I really care too much, or do I see this as a buying opportunity? Personally, I see this as a buying opportunity, because on the higher time frame, this zone would be a very good zone to be buying. Not only that, but let's just say you're buying in the more recent times. Let's say you're buying, you know what? Let's take it from this top right over here. Boom, right, that to this bottom. Okay, this top to this bottom, more or less accurate. Okay, so if we go flip it, boom, like this, I know there's lots of lines. But let's just say, right, this is the 50% zone. So between this whole entire range, the bottom of this range to the top of this range, which is it's fair. You might be thinking, well, why are you saying this? Well, because this is where the momentum really started to, shift. This was the last low, and then we started to go up, right? And then of course, this is the last high. So this is really like the key range. So in this range, right, if you're buying at the 0.50 between the 0.50 and the 1, you're buying at a discounted zone in this range. If you're buying above the 0.50 to the 0, that means you are buying at a more premium price in this range. So let's just say, for simplicity's sake, you are buying in the more, discounted zone. And I think, in terms of time, you would definitely have more time to be buying in the premium zone. Okay. Definitely, because there are way more candles down here and down here and here than there are above the zone. So let's say you bought down here, right? If we see Zebec network, I know people are saying, let's just go to ascent first. Okay, and let's just say, and I understand why people say that. I understand why people say, let's get to ascent first. But like I showed before multiple times, momentum is a huge thing in crypto. We might be struggling to hit a cent for months. Next thing you know, 6 months later, we are at 25 cents, 50 cents. And that's just how crypto works. And I showed it time and time again, so I won't be re-explaining it once again. But let's just say, right, Zebec does go up to at least 12 cents, what I expect, right? This zone, overall 10 to 13 cents. Would you really care if you bought in this range down here, this small little box? I know it's very hard to see, but would you even care if it went all the way up here? You really wouldn't, right? And let's take away this. All right, let's take away this. You really wouldn't care if you bought down in this box if you were able to sell up here. Okay? So that's the thing, people. A lot of people are very, very short. They think very short term when it comes to crypto. They just want their money instantly. And to be honest, if that's how you are, then you're more likely going to burn yourself than reward yourself. Because trust me, sometimes doing less is a lot more in crypto. Trust. Okay. You don't always need to catch a 10% or a 20% pump, or catch the bottom and a quick flip. It's very hard. It's very stressful. It requires a lot of patience too, because you are a participator, right? You just get to participate in this. You get to watch. You don't actually have any influence. I don't have any influence. Okay. So listen, that short-term mindset will burn you out more. It will stress you out more. Okay. So look, right? You buy Zebec somewhere in this box. You know what? Let's just say you bought in this whole entire range over the last few months, whether it's, up at the top, somewhere in the middle, or somewhere on the lower end. At the end of the day, you wouldn't really care if you saw Zebec upwards of 10 cents. Now, would you, right? If you bought from the top of this range, let's say something like this, more or less, to the bottom of this range, you would still be looking at roughly 13.5x. Okay. So at the end of the day, right, as long as you have patience, as long as you consistently dollar cost average, as long as you understand why price is the way it is, then you will be fine. Okay. Your mentality you will be better. You'll have less stress. I also try to make these videos, every day, just so people can understand. I know sometimes people don't listen, right? Because I can see the attention rate. I can see I can see where people click off the most, how many people watch until the very end. But those that try their best and to listen, to understand, even if they don't understand fully, right? At least they are building some type of foundation in terms of their mentality, in terms of their stress levels, right? It's people like you that are going to have a higher chance of succeeding in these markets. Remember, this part is not even the hard part. Seeing your portfolio, even hypothetically minus 50%, is not even the hard part. You might think that's the hard part. The hard part about crypto is when you see your portfolio 10x, 12x, 7x, 20x, okay? Because for the average person, it's like, how high will this go? And then when you see something like 20x and then your portfolio is at 19x, then it's like, well, I just saw 20x. I won't settle for anything less than 20x. And all of a sudden your portfolio goes to 17x. And then you're just saying, oh God, please go back to a 20x and I'll cash out. And sometimes people have that opportunity. Sometimes they don't, because that 20x was actually the top of the cycle. And then a lot of people end up being burnt. You think going down minus 30% and waiting and things going sideways is the hard part? No, the hard part is when you are heavily up in profit and you need to start making very, very smart and educated decisions, but you also have a lot of pressure on your plate because you have some serious money in front of you, okay? And you cannot afford to either get out way too early, right? But you also don't want to end up being a bag holder, right? A lot of people do not win, right? A lot of people do not win. Only 3 to 5% of people win this cycle, which means, and even out of that 3 to 5%, some people just win a little bit, right? Not so many people are able to cash out a 5x, a 10x, a 15, 20, 30, 100x. You understand? That might be like 1% or even less, because it's those people that really try to be cold with their emotions. It's those people that really try to understand what is happening for what it is. You need to learn to detach yourself from how much a coin is going up or going down in the short term. You need to detach yourself from your portfolio number. Okay. You have to treat it like a game. And it's very simple. You see price go down, okay, you buy. You see price, let's just say, go lower hypothetically, you don't stress because you have the longer term vision. You understand that things are still, going to play out the way they're going to play out. And then, like I said, that's still the easy part. So that is it. Some psychology, lessons at the end. Trust me, if you think this is the hard part, then I really would like to see how some people are going to be reacting and behaving during the pumps, because it's very easy. You see your portfolio up 10x in a short span, you're thinking it's going to 100x. But do you know that? No, most people don't. Most people don't even understand the charts. Most people get too blinded by their number. They get too blinded by the positive news. They think, oh no, they see a dip and they think, oh well, this is just a dip. We're gonna go up higher. But sometimes that dip is actually the start of a reversal. So it gets much more complicated, people. It gets much more complicated. This is the easy part. That is it. I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I love you guys so much. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.